So it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces and so many new faces. My name's Kozan. I'm a guiding teacher here at Upaya Zen Center. And this is our first gathering of this kind in a way. And in a way, it's the continuation of gatherings we've been having since early in the pandemic. Roshi, Joan, and I started a year-long kind of journey called Socially Engaged Buddhist Training, and 300 people came together in this new and fabulous way of gathering over Zoom and started talking about how we meet the world with the heart of practice. And it was vibrant and kind of seeded many different ways of engaging in the world around the country and a bit around the world. And so we kept it going the next year. And this year we're endeavoring to open it up and make it this kind of large tent, global Sangha that keeps kind of coming together in different ways. And to be a place where we can gather once a month and practice and to hear from some of the leading Dharma teachers of our time and to discuss how do we show up in the world today? What is that for each of us and together as a Sangha? And we begin this year, Roshi Joan and I plan to be here with Norman to begin, but Roshi's travel plans changed at the last minute, so she's currently up in the air somewhere, and so can't join us, but we'll be leading next month's gathering. And we begin with a full understanding of the kind of mess we're in the world, a kind of heartbreak. We're just out of practice period here at Upaya. I'm in the room next door. You can see our resident body in the Zendo. And so we've spent a month in deep and quiet practice and just concluded yesterday. And as is so often the case when we stop for a little while and then we kind of reemerge across that threshold, there's a unique sense of heartbreak. We really know how to make a mess of things, and how do I go out and meet that with kindness and with a full heart and courage. And so we know the Dharma is a raft and is an inspiration and is also this medium of transformation. And so we gather to pull kind of inspiration and remember this is how we meet our lives and meet the world. And in particular, our attention is on the environment and the environmental degradation that is ongoing, and on the wars in the world today. We're sitting, bearing witness to the war and violence in Gaza, weekly here in the plaza in Santa Fe, and also communities around the country sitting in their town squares, and the war in Ukraine, but also knowing there are many wars we know less about and are less connected to that are ongoing in this world. And our politics, our social kind of discohesion or whatever we're in the midst of. And so knowing there are all these ways in which we're showing up to difficulty and suffering, and how do we pull inspiration from one another and show up together. So that's kind of our seed, our goal for this gathering. This is, of course, the first, and we'll do one every month and 2 in November because it's an election month and we may need to, And I know many of you may be joining us for the first time, and I know many of you are not joining us for the first time because I see many familiar faces. So I just want to begin by asking where everyone's coming from. Where are you in the world? And we'll open up the chat just at this beginning period. And if you just type in where you are, so we get a sense of who's here and where we're coming from. And I'll read them out as we go.
Please send the message to everyone rather than direct, and that way everyone can
Oh
see
yeah,
it.
they'll go to me or Kodo if you go direct. So Julie Reagan from Philadelphia, Leslie's in Manhattan, Karen from Mountain View, California, and Pam in Vancouver, Canada, uh, Elizabeth in Memphis, Karen in Athens, Georgia, a number of people in the Bay Area, including Amy, Susan Collins in Grand Canyon, Arizona. We have Bruce Glick in northern Maine, the other side of the country. We have someone's iPhone in Iowa City, and Eric Hulse in Kansas City, Karen in the Netherlands. You can read through here. People from all over the country, all over the world. Yeah. Karen Fett in Olympia, Washington. So, just remembering how wide this Sangha is, and that we kind of meet across time and space in this way, and that we're always practicing together in some way, that we come together to remember that. A couple of us in Ireland and the Netherlands again. Wow. And over 500 of us together. So thank you really for being here. I hope this is the beginning of practicing together through the year. Yeah. So it's my honor and privilege to introduce Norman Fischer, Roshi. He feels to me like you need very little introduction, Norman, but I'm sure there are people here who have not practiced with you or read your work before. So a little bit about Norman. He's a poet and a Zen Buddhist priest, and for many years lived and taught at San Francisco Zen Center, where for a time he was co-abbot from, I think, 95 to 2000. And he continues to serve at San Francisco Zen Center as a senior Dharma teacher there. And Norman's also the founder and spiritual director of Everyday Zen Foundation, which is an organization dedicated to adapting Zen Buddhism to our Western culture and to these times. He received his MA in Religious Studies from the Graduate Theological Union at Berkeley and his MFA from the famous Iowa Writers Workshop. And since then, it seems he hasn't stopped writing. If you look at a list of everything he's written, it's quite long. He's written a number of poetry books, the latest Men in Suits, a poem, and is the author of many books of prose, mostly on Zen practice and the Dharma, and including a recent book, When You Greet Me, I Bow, collection of his essays. And he's come and taught at Upaya Zen Center a number of times, which have been really impactful for me and for our resident community, and has come through to share his teachings with us. And we started socially engaged Buddhist training with Joanna Macy, speaking of the Dharma and the environment. And to start this year with Norman, I can't imagine anyone I'd rather do it with, or that would be more important to begin this practice with. So Norman, thank you for joining us and making the time.
Thanks, goes on. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. It is always a tremendous pleasure for me to be here at Upaya, sort of in this way, but in person too. I've been there many times. And I'm really happy to be addressing all of you this morning. Thanks to Roshi Joan for her tireless efforts to open the world to Dharma and Dharma to the world, and to Kozan and Kodo and in the entire Upaya community for making this possible. And I do feel really honored and grateful that I'm able to offer this opening talk for the Gathering Dharma series which Kozan has explained, is meant to be a powerful and important force for good in the world as we talk to one another and to our friends. We want to strengthen our compassion and confirm and affirm and strengthen our bodhisattva vow to be of benefit in this troubled world. So this morning I want to talk about Shanti Paramita, the paramita of patient forbearance, the practice of facing suffering and finding peace. But before I do that, I want to quote for you what it says on the Upaya website. And I want to read it for you as you breathe and are quiet as a kind of guided meditation. This is what it says on the opening page of the Upaya website. Upaya Zen Center's global community finds itself grieving the tragic loss of life in Ukraine, Gaza, Israel, and the 30 other wars raging on our planet at this moment. We stand upright and open as we call not only for a ceasefire, but a ceasing of war in our time. Our hearts cannot turn away from the truth of pervasive suffering, sorrow, and death as a result of war. And for this, we urge that this be a time of deep dialogue, reaching past differences, of recognizing that the terrible cost of war passes through generations, and that the impact of war on our earth is inestimable, and that we must realize our basic humanity and sanity for the sake of all at this time and those who are yet to be born. It is hard to imagine in this moment an end to the wars in Ukraine and Israel, Gaza, as well as the many other wars going on right now in the world. It's also hard to imagine the swift turnaround on the environment that we so desperately need, because in addition to the direct climate-related suffering, ongoing environmental dread is driving political, economic, and social forces that are making life so difficult in many, many ways for so many people. And it's hard to imagine from where we are standing right now, economic justice and a commitment to true caring for all those in need everywhere in the world. In a world as troubled as this one seems right now, it seems difficult to imagine peace and stability. Or maybe I should say the opposite. Actually, it's easy to imagine peace and stability. We can imagine them and we can feel them, even though we can't expect them anytime soon to be the conditions of our world. But we can imagine them, we can feel them, and we can actually live them in our hearts right now. We can live them in our breathing, in our silence right now. We can live them in our conduct right now. And we need to be doing that. And we need to keep on doing it as long as we live and beyond. Because what we can imagine will happen one day. And in the meantime, without unrealistic hopes, we need to do what we can to bring these things about. War, especially, is so sad and so destructive and so preventable. It is always so shocking, a war. You know, you ask, why, with all the human problems that we have that are so difficult to deal with, do we need to go ahead and make more problems that we don't need to make? Isn't it so simple? Peace, not war. Just don't fight. Don't bomb anybody. Don't kill anybody. Don't burn down buildings. Don't destroy cities. Isn't it easier not to do that than it is to do that? And yet, war happens over and over again. I think now what's so sad is that we kind of were almost thinking we were beyond it. And yet here it is. So we are practicing Zen Buddhism, which is a Bodhisattva practice, a Mahayana Buddhist practice. Mahayana means great vehicle, which includes everyone and everything. As Mahayana Buddhist practitioners, we strive to be bodhisattvas, beings who want to keep on practicing for the benefit of others, on and on and on, until all worlds everywhere are peaceful and all beings realize Buddhahood, which will take a very long time. But we will go on with our practice until that day comes. Fortunately, the effort to do that is so joyful that it's fine. We're not in a hurry. We just want to keep on going with our joyful practice. And we have a way to do this. It's not vague. It's a way. And there are many ways to define it, but one way is the 6 paramitas, 6 perfections, 6 practices that we commit ourselves to doing for our whole lives that will purify the world and help beings. And the 6 practices are Dana Paramita, generosity, Shila Paramita, ethical conduct, Shanti Paramita, patient forbearance, Virya Paramita, joyful effort, Dhyana Paramita, focused meditation, and Prajna Paramita, the wisdom of selflessness. So this is our path. And this is what sustains us in the Bodhisattva practice of caring for all beings. But maybe of all 6 of them, maybe today we might say Shanti Paramita is the one we really, really need. Because being alive is a question of confronting obstacles. There's no living without obstacles. And Kshanti Paramita is the practice of facing and merging with those obstacles. In a troubled world especially, bodhisattvas need lots of patient forbearance if they're going to continue to make effort on behalf of sentient beings and sustain that effort every single day for a lifetime and beyond. So bodhisattvas take a lot of care to develop and perfect their practice of patient forbearance. And they prize this practice very, very much. So this morning, I want to specifically address how bodhisattvas receive suffering, how we practice in the midst of suffering. Everybody knows that Buddhism is famous for its emphasis on suffering. First noble truth, all conditioned existence has the characteristic of suffering or dukkha, radical unsatisfactoriness. Second truth, suffering has a cause. Third truth, suffering can end. Fourth truth, the Eightfold Path. right view, right intention, speech, conduct, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, meditation, a wholehearted path involving our whole lives that will bring an end to suffering. And those four truths really say everything about Buddhism that anyone needs to know. But of course, you have to ask, what exactly do we mean by suffering? In Mahayana Buddhism, suffering is understood in a nuanced and complex way. Instead of practicing to end suffering, Bodhisattvas vow to completely understand and embrace suffering. This is because their primary motivation is compassion. Bodhisattvas are really not interested in ending suffering for themselves while others continue to suffer. They want to be with suffering beings in order to help. But also, Bodhisattvas understand that the real meaning of ending suffering is going beyond the self that suffers. That is, caring about and identifying with others rather than self is itself the end of suffering. Bodhisattvas realize there is no other way to end suffering than to live with full compassion, to stand in solidarity with sentient beings, to feel what sentient beings feel, and to completely become the suffering of sentient beings. That's the only way. That's seeing reality as it truly is. So compassion is not a noble option for bodhisattvas, something that they nobly undertake. It's simply the truth of how things are. There couldn't be any other way. And living this truth is the fundamental way that bodhisattvas bring healing to the world. I think all of us are activists. All of us are doing what we can to be of service to others. Actually, it is impossible to live without action every day. And when we have made a commitment to be bodhisattvas, every action that we do is dedicated to the welfare of sentient beings, and we're always trying to see what we can do from where we stand to be of help to others, and then we're doing that thing. What we call activists or activism is a special category of people and activity that is dedicated to voicing social issues and social ills for the purpose of drawing attention to them so that they can be rectified. And we can be activists in that specific sense too. But activism in the widest sense is something we practice all the time, every day in all of our activity, to cultivate the heart of compassion and to act with compassion all the time. Now, when we make this commitment, sure, we have to develop skills so that we can be effective in our helping. Yesterday, I was talking to a group of doctors and nurses who are in a training program to further develop the skills they already have to help others. I also frequently work with people who are conflict resolution professionals who are trying to develop peacemaking skills. So yes, we need people who are skillful in peacemaking, people who are skillful in caring for the human body, but we need all kinds of skills to help beings in this world. Every profession, every kind of work is helping work. when it is done with bodhisattva intention and bodhisattva spirit. So we should never feel powerless, like there's nothing we can do. There's a lot we can do every single day because bodhisattvas help everyone in every way, and people need all kinds of help. So we need skills and we need to do stuff. But beyond this, bodhisattvas want to understand and embrace the suffering. They want to be able to share the suffering with the people they're taking care of so that people will feel accompanied in their suffering and illuminated and magnified in their suffering. So bodhisattvas really want to understand, even while they're working, to end suffering. They don't want to jump over the suffering. They want to understand the suffering and really embrace it and appreciate it. Now, I think we all know this, but it's worth saying because sometimes we forget. There is no end to physical and emotional suffering. There's no end to it. Sickness, old age, and death, loss, despair, hopelessness, anguish. These things will not be eliminated as long as human beings have bodies, hearts, minds, and souls. But if we understand suffering and really understand suffering, we can bear all these forms of suffering with strength and a quiet heart. And then the suffering is not suffering. It's not suffering anymore. It's life at its most honest and most noble. So again, what is suffering and how do we practice it in such a way as to be a blessing to the people we're trying to take care of? How do we do that? So we have Everyday Zen, has a Dharma seminar, and we've been studying the Dharma on a weekly seminar for many decades now. And lately we've been studying a text of the Buddhist sage Vasubandu about the Vitnapti Matrata teachings. Vitnapti Matrata means something like representation only, or concept only, or consciousness only. In this text, Vasubandu is telling us that we are fundamentally mistaken in the way we see and experience the world. We see things as separate and weighty and out there. I'm over here. The world is over there. We only see, actually, three things. And this is a ridiculous way of putting it, but actually, I think it's true. We see three things only. Thing number one, ourselves, me, Thing number two, everybody else. And thing number three, the whole universe, the stage on which our drama unfolds. Since the second and third categories are very, very large, and the first category, the one we really care about most, is very, very small, we have a very big problem. Others in the world are always having a big impact on us. And much as we would like to control those things, they're way too big for us to control. And this makes life very hard. And this is why we're suffering. And of course, we fear that suffering, and we are going to do whatever we can to avoid it in the first place. So much of what we do, is motivated by trying to stave off the suffering. And when we can't stave it off, when it's there, when it appears, we do battle with it. A battle that we usually lose, but every now and then, we win the battle. Sometimes I wonder whether people undertake the commitment to help end the suffering of others because they don't want to look at suffering and they want to just immediately leap over the suffering and do battle with it and win. And that's why they're helping others. And sometimes, we do have wins, but mostly we don't win. The suffering of the world is way stronger than any one of us. Even if we were to spend, as so many people have done and are now doing, an entire lifetime taking care of the sick or working to end war, there will be just as many sick people and just as many wars at the end of our lives as there were at the beginning. The Vitnapti Matrata teachings, which are quite detailed and subtle, say that this whole setup that I've been describing is not actually the way it is. And worse than that, it's the reason why we suffer and why we are causing suffering and experiencing suffering. The real truth is, everything we experience is not weighty and out there and standing over against us. It is intimate and present right in the middle of our lives, right in the middle of our hearts. All the operations of the senses are intimate and present in the middle of what we are. Zen is famous for pointing this out. The sound of the bird is not over there in that tree. It's right here in my mind. Others are not outside of me. They are literally inside of me, in my thoughts and feelings. They are me, and I am them. And the only world we have ever lived in, and the only world we can possibly live in, is the world of our own experience. Any world we cannot experience directly through our senses, and in Buddhism, our senses include not only the 5 physical senses, but also thinking and feeling and imagination. Any world not able to be experienced by these does not exist for us. Life for us is what we experience through our senses, mind, and heart. So there is nothing over there, nothing outside, and nothing inside. There's just experience, moment after moment after moment. And as we know, our experience is fundamentally conditioned by our concepts in a very subtle way, so subtle that we don't notice this. We say, that's a bird. And we know we've heard a bird. Oh, that's my cousin. And we see the person in front of us. All experience is ultimately conceptual. All experience depends on consciousness. If there's no brain opening ourselves up to consciousness, then there's no experience, there's no world. This is what Vasubandu is teaching us. Now, there is no way we could eliminate our conceptual frameworks, because that's the way our human mind works. That's the way we are set up to be in the world. We're not trying to eliminate our conceptual frameworks, but when we know them as conceptual frameworks, we can be free of them. We no longer need to be spun around by them, and they no longer need to cause us so much suffering. Knowing conceptual frameworks as conceptual frameworks and not mistaking conceptual frameworks for ultimate real things is more than an idea. It's something we can actually train in. It's something that little by little we can feel in our hearts, that little by little can be a way we live. And when we practice this, we become intimate with our human experience, and we become intimate with others and the world. And suffering stops being something that we dread and fear, something alien, an enemy. What we call suffering becomes a valuable and necessary part of our being human together. And when we see suffering that way, our whole relationship to it completely changes. We fully accept suffering, and we appreciate its depth, even though, as bodhisattvas, we do what we can to alleviate it. We are not making it into an enemy. We really appreciate it. And you know, this Vitnapti Matrata teaching, although in Zen we don't necessarily reference it directly or study it directly, classically anyway, but it's actually more or less the theory behind Zazen. With so many people here, I'm sure that not all of you are Zen students. But in Zazen, Zen way of meditating, especially our Soto Zen way, we are simply sitting down in the present moment of being alive, of this experience that we call life. So our method is to pay attention to our posture and to our breathing, and to return again and again to posture and breathing. But actually, we're not doing breathing practice per se. What we're doing is using the breathing and the posture to return again and again to the intimate experience of what it is to be alive, to breath, body, to sound and sight, to thinking, to feeling, to sensation, just being alive. And in practicing this way, we are cutting through conceptual thinking. Now, conceptual thinking might come up a lot while we're sitting there. But when we're sitting there, we know conceptual thought as conceptual thought. We can appreciate it. We can let it go. We don't need to be compelled by it or upset by it. And we no longer see anything whatsoever in our experience that needs to be denied or avoided. We are fully willing to let life be as it is. That's the way we practice Zazen. Now, if you hear this, you might say, well, that's not how it is when I meditate. Maybe you think, well, you know what? I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. I think that your meditation is that way. But because you have a habit of seeing yourself in a particular way and not in some other way, you are not as alert to what your experience really is as you might be. We are all pretty convinced, aren't we, that we are separate, substantial persons with various built-in conditioned characteristics. And we are not used to seeing that we are also more than that. But we are, every one of us. And I guarantee you that if you keep on sitting with devotion regularly, eventually you will appreciate exactly what I'm saying if you don't already. Your point of view will become lighter and more porous, and you will have a lot more Shanti Paramita, patient forbearance with yourself, with others, and with the profound reality of human suffering. Now, I think that our usual view of suffering is that suffering is a failure. If they're suffering, something is wrong. That's how we think about it. Somebody messed up. Now, maybe we don't consciously think that way, but if you look at it more closely, I think you'll see there's truth to this. And maybe this idea comes from the Bible. It's biblical. And you know, even if we didn't even grow up in Western cultures, if we've been educated in a Western culture or are aware of the modern world, we can't escape, you know, the Bible, because it's there in our deepest thought, right? The Bible says that human beings suffer because they're sinners, they're arrogant, they don't obey God. Suffering is their punishment. That's what it says, you know. So if you're suffering, there's something wrong. Even if it's so obvious, you know, this happened. I was walking down the street and this thing came out of the window and hit me on the head. It wasn't my fault. There's nothing I did to deserve this. Even when that's completely clear, somehow or other, in our heart of hearts, suffering is our fault. To be suffering is to be wrong in some deeply disturbing way. Suffering is not normal. Suffering is failure. But bodhisattvas have a much wider view than this. You know, in all spiritual traditions, including ours, in Soto Zen, and all of our Dharma meetings, we always chant for healing. We have a long list of people who are ill, and we chant a sutra and we say, we dedicate this sutra to the healing of these people. And when we do that, we understand that healing doesn't necessarily mean that they become physically well. We hope they will become physically well. And if we're a doctor, or you know, maybe we can help heal them, and or maybe we have advice for them or something. We want to heal them physically. But healing might be a bigger question than the healing of the body. It might be the healing of the heart, the healing of the soul. And these are also profound forms of healing. Maybe more profound forms of healing than physical healing. Because to heal is to become whole. And to become whole is to fully embrace your life and all of life as it is. Bodhisattvas fully appreciate this point. And they look at the suffering person not as a pathetic person who needs our help, but rather as a dignified human being who is right now, by virtue of her suffering, experiencing life at a greater depth than ever before. We need to look at those who suffer as awesome creatures who can teach us something about our own lives. Because we too are embodied human beings, and we too, if not now, then soon will also be suffering in more or less this way. Because suffering is a gift. Suffering goes along with being human. Suffering is the truth. So many of you who are affiliated with Upaya or with the Zen Peacemaker tradition of Bernie Glassman. Bernie was an old teacher of mine too. I lived with Bernie in his community for a while in the 1980s, so I knew Bernie well. So you all know, and I'll tell those of you who don't know, the peacemaker orders 3 tenets: not knowing, bearing witness, and taking action. And the idea is that these 3 go together and they build on one another. Not knowing is to appreciate the vastness of things, to appreciate the real power of reality beyond our conceptions of it, to understand Vasubandhu's teaching that the conceptual world we create is simply that, and cannot possibly explain or appreciate the fullness of what is. That's not knowing. Based on this profound not knowing, this deep respect, even awesome respect for life and one another, we bear witness. And bearing witness is the practice of Shanti Paramita. Bearing witness is patient forbearance. It comes from our not knowing, which compels us to face toward rather than away from suffering, to see the suffering as it really is. True seeing, unflinching seeing, without doing anything. Just being in identity with the suffering. Just being with is the practice of bearing witness. And then, based on not knowing and bearing witness, with full hearts, we just simply do what we can to help. Sometimes we can do amazing things and turn around huge situations. Sometimes we can't do much. But to practice not knowing and bearing witness is already doing a lot, more than we literally can imagine. We can bring healing just with these 2 practices. But then we go beyond them and we do something. We do what we can do. We speak out, we stand up, we protest, we encourage, we minister, we heal, we create. And these things can never be done with hatred or disrespect or resentment. Our enemies, those who do the terrible things we want to prevent, are also human. And there's a reason why they do what they do, and we must try to understand them, even if we do not agree. And this means that Bodhisattva activism is not the same as other activisms. We appreciate all forms of activism, but Bodhisattvas have a way of contributing to the activist world. Because our activism is based on Kshanti Paramita. It's based on not knowing and bearing witness. And I know that to sustain a life of caring, a life that has joy and happiness, this is the only way. Because to try to change the world and become enmeshed in it, enmeshed in afflictive emotion, enmeshed in one-sidedness, frustration, no matter how justified those reactions may seem, is inevitably to reduce the long-range effectiveness of our action and the sustainability of our action. Bodhisattvas are fully confident that love is always stronger than hate, that compassion is always stronger than aggression, And when once in a while they might forget this and become overcome with afflictive emotion or frustration or despair, they know what that is. And they know how to address it. And they always get help. Because there's no such thing as a bodhisattva alone. All bodhisattvas are together bodhisattvas. So there's always help. We're never alone. The help we need will always be there when we need it, if we look for it. So in closing, let me just take a moment to do with you a practice just for a few breaths that I'm sure many of you know about. It's a very famous practice of Tonglen, or sending and receiving. In times like this, with so much suffering, I think we actually need to practice sending and receiving. I do this now every day, just to relieve my own heart. So if you will, for a moment, just return to your body. Be aware of your body sitting there. And notice how as soon as you return awareness to your body, there is a quality of stillness, peacefulness, that is inherent in the awareness itself. And it's immediately there as soon as you return awareness to the body. And now be with your breathing for a few breaths. And as you breathe, try to notice how the inhale and the exhale can be just the same length. And if they aren't, try to balance them. And now as you breathe in, imagine the suffering of the whole world and breathe it in. When you breathe it in into the stillness of your body and of your breathing. As you breathe out, feel how the suffering has dissolved and has become soft, healing energy that floats out on your breath, and you can direct that soft, healing energy to the suffering world. So you breathe in the suffering. You can imagine it almost as a dark air. It is transformed by your awareness into a soft, healing energy, and you breathe out that healing and you send it to a suffering world. And you can do this practice for one person who is suffering. You can imagine that person and their suffering. You can do it for a group of people who is suffering. Or you can do it for the whole world, or all of those. And you can practice this for a while. You can practice it for just one breath. And if you notice that you're being beleaguered by the suffering of the world, it's starting to get you down, practice sending and receiving like this for one breath, for two breaths. And I think you'll find some relief. And if you yourself are in a period of time where you're suffering a lot, You can practice this way for yourself. You can breathe in your own suffering, transform it through your awareness, and breathe out relief, and in this case, send it around back to yourself. This is a way we can practice Shanti Paramita, turning toward the suffering, taking in the suffering with confidence, not being afraid of it, not wishing it would go away, being strengthened by the suffering itself. So thank you again to Upaya. Thanks to all of you for listening. And it's very encouraging because I always think, if there's one person who decided to listen to the Dharma, that's as good as 200 or 500 people, because they're going to encounter 200 or 500 other people, and they're going to be blessings for those 200 or 500 people. So right now there's 526 people. So multiply that by 200 or 500, and we've got a good start toward making a better world. I'm actually quite confident that the world will be a better place to be. This has been our human destiny from the start. It's taking a while, but not really very long at all. You look at the big picture of things. We're getting there, getting little by little by little. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Kozan. Sorry. Kozan.
Thank you, Norman.
I know we're done, but I think I went on longer than expected. So if you wanted to have time for
we have another 25 minutes. We have
we do
planned, for the extra half hour for some Q&A if you're up for it.
Yeah, I am sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's open it up then. If people want to raise their digital hands, I'll call on people and make sure we have a diversity of people who've been practicing with us for a long time and those who may be here for the first time. And the digital hand should be at the bottom of your screen under reactions. And these days, if you actually just raise your hand long enough, it'll put up your digital hand. So
is that right? Fascinating.
So while people are thinking about what you've shared, Norman, I just want to thank you for informing our view, reminding us to turn toward suffering and that it is the path, and for your confidence, sharing your kind of trust that this is the way. We lose that confidence sometimes. And maybe while people are thinking, if you could just say a few words about a bit of what you ended on. When we think the world is just a veil of tears and there's no way we're all in this together, when we're really in despair, and a version that seems to be quite popular right now of that feeling is, there's certain people who just don't get it on the other side of the political spectrum or in this country where there's war or whatnot. When you're really faced with that, how do we catch ourselves? How do we notice that?
Well, I think that when you practice for a while, a stupid thought is quite obvious. I mean, because you've seen it a million times. I think these other people are really stupid. Yeah. And now I'm going on and on about that. And then if I think about that for a minute, I think, now, are these other people that I think are so stupid, am I doing something to diminish their stupidity by having these thoughts? No, they have no idea I'm thinking this. But what am I doing to myself by thinking this? I'm getting myself all worked up. And now I just yelled at my wife because I'm so worked up about these stupid people that my wife, who happened to be standing in front of the refrigerator, when I wanted to get into the refrigerator really pissed me off. So now I'm yelling at her, and now she is very insulted by this, and she's yelling at me, and now we're getting a divorce because of all these stupid people that I'm thinking about. In other words, the only people that have been hurt by this dumb thought is myself. And when I realized that, and I realized that really what I'm thinking about is not these other people, I'm thinking about my own experience and my own ideas. That's what I'm thinking about. I have no idea what another human being really is thinking about. So I know that thought for what it is. And as soon as it appears in my mind, I understand that it is a very useless, pointless thought whose only purpose is to confuse and cause me pain. Mm. So I endure it as long as it's there. Mm. And I don't feed it. I don't get excited about it. I let it go. Sometimes if I have to resort to extreme measures to cope with it, I do that. And extreme measures might be something like drop what I'm doing and sort of sit for a few minutes, or take my breath and breathe for a few minutes, or practice sending and receiving for a few minutes, or something like that. You know, otherwise I can just see it for what it is, let it go, and go about my business. So we have to, you know, taking care of our own minds is just like cleaning your house, you know. Oh, I did that. I don't have to do that anymore. No. You have to do it all the time because it keeps getting messy. But if you sweep every day and clean up a bit every day, you can kind of keep it within bounds.
And you really get to know a stupid thought when it's a stupid.
Yeah. And after, at a certain point, it becomes a little comical, you know?
Yeah.
Like I often, my friend Philip Whalen used to say all the time, and I say this to myself all the time, all these years of expensive Zen training, and you still think like that, you know? Yeah. It's a kind of ridiculous.
Well, we have a lot of hands, so we'll see how many questions we can get to in the next little bit. But Hannah, go ahead. I'm going to unmute people, so go ahead.
Hi, Hannah. You can talk.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just really happy hearing your talk. And because it's so on point for what we human beings need to live through these times, especially as seeing others, what you called enemies, but I'm calling others, trapped in some conception of one's own making, and then turning that light on ourselves, being trapped in the conception. So what I like about this and what I want to highlight is this awareness is a decision point. It's one moment where we can decide. We have a choice. Of course, we have repeated moments, right? Little maras that come up and, you know, challenge us to make that choice over and over. But it's as simple as that, really. That one moment of awareness of others being trapped, awareness of us being trapped, making the choice to liberate ourselves in that moment.
That's right. That's right. I think that's it. Practice is always just in a moment. And the reason why we do all the stuff, you know, sitting and chanting and going to Dharma talks and all this, is so that we'll be ready for that moment. We'll be there and we'll be able to decide what to do in that moment. That's right. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Yeah. Good reminder.
Thank you, Hannah. Balthazar, here you go. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am very grateful for what was shared today, for what has been shared today. I have one practical questions and a stupid question. And the practical question is about Tonglen. I have tried and often get discouraged because it's hard to believe. I don't know how key it is, or if I am confused about being willing to, and maybe awareness is the key, but being willing to experience. I once heard someone say that a key part of it is saying, what I am experiencing, may I experience, what they are experiencing, may I experience so that nobody else does. Does that sound useful or um or confused?
Well, there's lots of approaches to that practice, and I'm sure that that's a good way. But it can be much simpler. It can just be breathe in the suffering, breathe out relief, and that's all.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
may I ask the stupid question?
Sure, I'll give you a stupid answer.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. When I hear about human experience or human capacities, or being truly focusing everything on being human, I often disagree or like start getting problematic or because I feel that when we are only able to, or only humans are able to be liberated, this statement to practice, and I I often find that when we're only able to identify a life similar to ours, maybe because they are our neighbor or they're the same color of our skin, they live on the same side of the planet, or maybe they just have similar body shapes, is when things get very confusing. And I wonder how valuable it could be to extend our compassion to life that is non-human, or
Yes.
that we don't identify as life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that's anything but a stupid question. Of course, of course. And if my talk implied that we're only thinking about humans, then my talk was not good. No, Dogen says grass, trees, roof tiles, and pebbles preach the Dharma. All of reality is our concern. Because we're human, we have to think about our humanness and how to cope with our humanness. But we're not only human. We are all those things, and all those things are us. It's not just, in fact, to be focused on the human world and the human world only is a path of destruction. So no, we're not interested in doing it. Thank you for pointing that out, Balthasar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Balthasar. Christine.
Hello, thank you so much, Cousin and Roshi John, for organizing this. Thank you so much, Norman, for this wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it. I have maybe a stupid question too. I don't know. I am working with teenagers as a teacher, and I started a new group in September as the school year came. I cannot reach them. I am doing, 2 to 5 minutes of meditation every day at the beginning of class with them. I just cannot reach them, and they are suffering so deeply from various backgrounds they're coming from. And I'm to this point right now, we are close to February, where I cannot, I wonder what else to do. And I don't know. So what can I do to reach people or young people, 15 to 17 years old, which are so deep into their suffering, that they are not listening,
Yeah. Well, don't try to tell them anything. Ask them to speak. ask them to speak, and if you can, structure ways to get them to speak about their suffering.
Yeah.
I was in exactly the same situation years ago when I was teaching in high school, and I finally got these students. These were African American students who were in a white high school, and they were suffering a lot. And I asked them to write, and I said, let's write, and don't worry about grammar or spelling or anything like that, but write about what you think, and let's brainstorm some questions you would like to write about. And of course, the first thing I wanted to write about was racism. I said, good, let's write about racism. And so they wrote, and they read for each other what they wrote. I didn't say a thing to them. I had no message for them whatsoever, other than to facilitate their speaking to one another. And in their speaking to one another, they found a lot of goodness in the proceedings.
I will try that.
Try that.
I will try that. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to teach my science curriculum, but I have to try that. I cannot have them work unless they actually are opened.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
that's
for
the
doing what
problem.
you do, Christina. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask, there's a question in the Zendo. The hand is up. It could be anyone in the Zendo, but maybe if whoever has a question could share.
It's Denny. I have a thanks Norman. That was fantastic and so inspiring. I'm a resident here at Upaya. I love your confidence that all is not lost, and I so want to believe that. But part of me just goes back to, come on, the world is. The history of the world of we've been doing this for a long time, and the Holocaust is so recent. There's still wars, the climate. I guess I'm answering my own question here. But what do we do? What do I do with this sort of lack of faith in that the world can still be saved? And I think it's because I'm asking you this question, that I'm speaking up, that I'm just afraid that all is lost, and that And
well, I mean, this is. Oh, I can hear my voice in the Zendo. They're echoing. Anyway, yes. This is what I was trying to say in my talk, that if you have this small picture of our lives and of our history, then it makes perfect sense to be discouraged and in despair. When I see people who are discouraged and in despair, I say, well, that's totally rational. That's not a failing. You should be discouraged and despairing. Because yes, look at human history. Look at the world around us now. There's nothing whatsoever that would give you the idea that everything's going to turn out great. So you have to open up the picture. You have to see a different, you see things on a different scale and in a different way. And that's what I'm saying, Vasubandu is saying. And that's what our practice is about. That's why our practice is so necessary to sustain helping, because we have to have a bigger picture and a bigger sense of what it is that the world is and what it is that we're doing. And in that bigger picture and in that bigger sense, we can have absolute confidence, because I understand my own mind, I understand my own heart, and I understand Vasubandhu's exhortation to see the world bigger. And based on that, I can have complete confidence. Now, does that mean I'm guaranteeing you that bad things won't happen? No, of course, bad things are going to happen. That's for sure. Bad things have happened, and in the future, bad things will happen. But in the long run, this human dream, which runs through every single religious tradition, that we can live in a world that is just and peaceful, this will happen. And I feel confident that it will. I don't know when, and I don't know how many bad turns in the road we're going to experience between now and then, but I have confidence in that, because it's in my heart, and it's in your heart, and it's in the heart of every person I so far have met. Even nasty people have this buried way down there. underneath all the crappy stuff that has happened to them to cause them to be as twisted as they are, it's there too, because they have human consciousness and human language and a human heart. It's there. So I am very confident in it. But that doesn't mean that I think that starting tomorrow, everything's going to be better. I don't know what will be tomorrow. But I know that today, in my heart and in your heart, we can have peace.
Because of your confidence, I'm more confident, and I can see that's something that I can carry forward. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks, Denny. So maybe a couple more, if that's all right. Emmy, go ahead. We'll unmute you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for your talk. I'm learning a lot. I come from a psychiatric behavioral health background, and I'm wondering, because I felt hesitation myself doing the Tongling practice, are there some who should not do the practice? And when do you know that you're ready? Or is everyone ready? And I hear you saying, meditate. And is it the ability to meditate deep and long? Is there, how does one know that they're grounded enough to contain and transform the suffering of themselves and the world?
Well, I think people know. I mean, if I give that practice and somebody says, whoa, no way I'm going to do that, then I would say, well, good, maybe you better not do it. Or if they try it and they say, you know what, that was a very difficult experience for me. It made me feel, really shaky afterward. Then I would say, well, maybe it's not a good practice for you. Just be with your breathing. So I think people know it's kind of fairly straightforward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for your talk, Norman. And I wondered if you could please speak to something many of us have probably heard from Pema Chodron. There are three phrases. Pain in life is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And suffering is pain times resistance. I wondered if you'd be kind enough to address those ideas.
Well, I don't think they need addressing. They're pretty straightforward, right? I mean, that's the genius of those little kind of phrases,
Yeah.
right? Is that they say it all. You don't need, yeah, just what you said. I agree. That's true, and that's a good little shorthand synopsis of what we can learn from Buddha Dharma. Yeah.
Thank you.
Laura, hi. I see Laura, it keeps raising her physical hand and you're not seeing Laura. Laura's our dear friend from Chacala in Mexico, who is one of the world's great bodhisattvas, helping beings in a million different ways over a period of about 40 or 50 years. Hi, Laura. It's good to see you. And I see Michael over there in the background.
Laura, I'm trying to unmute you. I'm sure you want to ask a question. I think you have to press something on the screen. It'll say asking to unmute. And if you press OK, there you go.
Okay. But I don't hear you. I'm not hearing you.
But I don't think we can hear you.
No. Maybe write what you want to say in the chat, and maybe Kozan can see it in the chat.
No,
and
I'll take a look. Yeah.
In the meantime, we can go to someone else.
Okay. Batya. Oh, I think I've muted you while you unmuted yourself.
There she is. There she is. But I can't hear Batya either. Maybe there's something on your end, Kozan, that.
Yeah, I wonder what that is. Batya,
No, I'm not hearing anything either.
Yeah, and we can hear you, Kodo. Sorry, Batya. I don't know why we're not hearing you. If you're able to write too, we can take a look. Okay. maybe for a third time. Lucky. Diana, do you want to try?
Yes.
We can hear you. Okay.
Hi. I really appreciate that impactful discussion on compassion. And I have a question. I'm a healthcare as well as a caregiver. And for 10 years, I took care of my mom as she developed Alzheimer's disease, which really taught me a lot about compassion. And today I help others who are, I facilitate care groups for caregivers. And I understand the Shanti Paramita like that. I really get that, right? I've lived my life through that lens, really. And I was wondering if you could connect that to resilience, to, taking that next step to how we recover as care providers.
Well, I think that's the beginning of resilience, but then to really be resilient and sustain a life of caring, we have to take care of ourselves on all levels, right? So I think you need to have a good diet, you need to exercise, you need to observe your state of mind all the time, and when you see your state of mind beginning to sink and get shabby and frayed at the edges, you need to address that. So yes, taking care of oneself in order to sustain caring for others, which I guess they call resilience these days, is something that Bodhisattvas have to be very intelligent and very active in practicing. So it involves many, many things. It really mostly paying attention to how you're doing and addressing your concern for yourself when you see that you need it. But for sure, the capacity to turn towards suffering and understand suffering and not be overcome by suffering is the primary practice. Yes, that's what we've been talking about today.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for what you've been doing and are continuing to do.
So Norman, I want to be aware of our time and your time. We're nearing the half hour. I wonder if there's any final words you want to offer.
Did we get any words in the chat from Batya or Laura?
I did not. No.
Okay. Batya is an old friend too. Hi, Batya. Batya's from Israel, so I myself have been thinking about Israel Gaza every single day since October the 7th. So I'm there with you, Batya.
Well, thank you, Norman. It's been an incredible way to start this year of practice together, to turn towards suffering together and be in community. So I want to, you started with the paramitas, and of course we begin with Dana Paramita, and just ask everyone to consider supporting Upaya and to support this talk today. There's a link in the chat we'll put up to offer a donation, and there's also an email that'll go out. And what you send supports Upaya to do this work in the world, and supports Norman to do his work in the world. So to continue to consider making a donation and practicing it in that form of Dana Paramita. And we'll gather again next month, and Roshi Joan will lead us on February 25th. And this will be on the subject of the Eightfold Path. And what does that open up for us in terms of putting these matters into practice, much like we discussed today. And to, mark your calendars. It would be really nice to gather as a group continuously. And so to make an effort to stay in this practice together and to come back together month after month and have the conversation be continuous. So wonderful to see you all. Wonderful to be in this practice together. And we have audio. Sorry about that. So I'm going to mute everyone and just close with the 4 Bodhisattva vows, which we say at the end of our gatherings. We can maybe close our eyes. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Thank you, everyone, for your practice and for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you next month as well. Take care. Bye.